Good morning, everybody. You're welcome to the webinar this morning themed HSE and Procurement Resolution, a call for collaboration. This webinar is brought to you by Green Shield Safety, and Green Shield Safety is committed to ensuring the workplace safety of every Nigerian worker. We want to ensure that every Nigerian worker goes back home healthy, safe, and sound to their families. My name is Kelechi, representing Green Shield Safety. On this webinar today, we have two speakers. We have Mr. Oluleke Ogunremi and Mrs. Fatima Opeyemi Beridugo. They'll both be taking us on this topic this morning. Mr. Oluleke Ogunremi will be taking us on the procurement aspect, while Mrs. Fatima will be taking us on the HSE aspect. So this morning, we'll be looking at how HSE and procurement team, how they can work together for a common goal. Before we proceed, I would like us to have a safety moment. Kindly look around you, ensure you're properly seated, ensure there are no harmful objects around you, and check your electrical wires if they are properly plugged in. Let's take this few minutes to just look around us. Our speaker, Mr. Oluleke Ogunremi, is currently the procurement and consultant for Sterling Oil Exploration. He's also an MD, CEO of Shasa Procurement Consulting Firm. So he'll be speaking with us this morning on the procurement aspects of this, I call it little conflict. So he'll be speaking with us on the procurement aspect, while Mrs. Fatima will be taking the HSA aspect. So Mr. Oluleke Ogunremi, can you join us up here, please? While we wait for Mr. Oluleke to join us up here, I would like to welcome some special people. When I say special people, they are people that has been joining our webinar from day one. They have never missed one, not even once. And I'm really glad they could make it here again this morning. I'm seeing Blessing Sylvester, Nika, Chinazar, Chizaram, Benga, Halima Umar, Mr. Emmanuel Banjo. I'm seeing Jesse Jacob. Your presence here is very important to me, and I'm glad you all could make it. Our speakers, Mr. Oluleke Ogunremi and Mrs. Fatima Opeyemi, they'll be speaking with us on the set topic. Mr. Oluleke will be taking the procurement aspect, while the HSE aspect will be taken by Mrs. Fatima Opeyemi. Okay, while we wait for our panelists, let's have a little discussion. In your various places of work, have you had a clash with your procurement team? And if you're in procurement, have you had a clash with your HSE team, and how did you resolve it? Was it jollof scatter, or you handled it with diplomacy and maturity? So let me hear from our attendees. You can drop your message in the message box, in the chat box, and I'll read it out. Or if you want to come up to speak, you can just raise your hand and I'll bring you up. Oh, Mr. Paul, you haven't had a clash, okay? You know, it's actually a good thing to have your HSE and procurement team align. You know, if the two teams align, a lot of things will go right. Okay, Blessing Sylvester says she hasn't had in the past. John Mark, okay, we haven't had a clash with that. Wow, I like this. But for me also, we haven't had in our organization, but I paid a visit to an organization some time ago. I was hearing stuff like, oh, the procurement team, they've been this, they've been that. The HSE team on the other side will be like, oh, the procurement team are not really doing well. They're really spoiling their KPIs and all of that. And wow. Okay, someone said here, I have a clash with HR procurement team of giving the right. Yes, it happens though. This clash happens like in real time. It does. Mr. Arnold said, currently working in the marine industry, we've had lots of clashes, of course. I said that these clashes exist, you know. He said, we've had lots of clashes when it comes to safety equipment. Procurement want to buy cheap things, and HSE will say, no, we don't want cheap things. We want the right product. We want the right equipment. And procurement will be like, no, this is too expensive. And HSE will say, no, this is the safe. They will say it is safe, and procurement will say it is cheap. So this is why we have this webinar today for procurement and HSE professional. We want to know how we can be on the same page and say, okay, we want safety, and we want cheap. How do we come together to align? So this is why we have this webinar this morning. Okay, Mr. James said, I have in the past with procurement team as a result of cutting costs. This has always been the problem, cutting costs. Everybody wants to, cut costs. We don't want to spend too much on PPEs. And the safety guys are saying PPE is important. It's important. You want to save cost, you need to also save cost through getting the right PPEs, because by the time you buy a cheap PPE that won't last, you will have to buy and buy over and over, and that has always been the problem. So, Mr. Oluleke, are you ready?
Yes, please. I am.
The floor is open and over to you, sir.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I am Oluleke on the line. All right. Thank you very much for the invitation to be on this call. According to the host, HSC procurement collaboration in oil and gas. Sorry, my focus is going to be on oil and gas because I'm an oil and gas person, and then related with other industry as it may be, because procurement principle is not majorly on one aspect of industry, is a generic principle that collaborates and take along all other industries together. So procurement principles are general to all other industries. So on this call today, collaboration. For there to be collaboration, there must be a kind of disagreement that must have happened between HSC and the procurement team. Objective of this call, on my own hand, is to understand the common HSC procurement conflicts. Now, identify the root causes of these conflicts, learn collaborative resolution strategies, and apply the best practices in oil and gas and EPC environment. There is a call for HSC team and the procurement team of every organization to work together, because HSC is vital to operational operations, and also the procurement team is also better. But there is a need for these two teams to synergize together to collaboratively work to achieve project objective for the organizations. So now, a tree does not make a forest. Procurement cannot alone say that I am the one doing everything. Either can HSC also say that it's not doing everything. So there's what is called a kind of a teamwork that must coexist within the procurement team and the HSC team to make sure that every value in terms of procurement or quality of an item or services that will be rendered is maximized to the core. So procurement operation includes stakeholder management. It's not majorly focusing on the commercial values alone, but how can we also carry along all other stakeholders that are involved in the project. So this makes us look at a stakeholder management matrix, which is power matrix. Now, on this matrix, you see in a contract that says power, another one says interest, high, low. Now, the end users, which I will call in code the technical team. When I mean technical team, does not mean that everybody are not involved, but majorly the technical team has their own contract on this matrix. Some of them needs to be keep satisfied, some manage closely, some monitor with minimal effort, and some keep informed. But when it comes to procurement and HSC, anything HSC, because HSC, health, safety, and environment is very, very vital to operations of every organization. So when it comes to this point, so we need to keep them informed and manage them closely so that all conflict whatsoever that might kind of arise might be settled, and everything in terms of operational project can move on very, very fast. Now, why HSC and procurement collaboration? Like I said before, if there's no conflict between HSC and procurement, there can be a way that there will be a call for a collaboration or a settlement or a teamwork. So because these two teams are vital, and each of them wants to protect their own priorities in terms of interest, in terms of visions. So procurement talks about values, commercial values, and the rest. While HSC talks about the safety of the men, even of the organization that are involved. So this can be achieved majorly by early involvement of qualification processes. Now, in procurement, before you onboard a vendor, you have to pre-qualify them based on their area of expertise. So now, talking about the HSC, which is safety items or safety services. So imagine you want to you onboard a vendor on an HSC services or HSC items. You need to carry along the HSC team from the beginning, because if they are not being carried along, eventually there will be conflicts between the HSC and procurement team. On a pre-qualification questionnaire, there are aspects of technical questions that are involved. Now, These technical questions will tell you if that particular vendor or contractor is HSE certified to actually carry out that particular service or to deliver that particular item, or probably to manufacture that particular item. There are some certificates. Take, for instance, you want to get involved with a vendor that supplies chemicals. Of course, that vendor must be evaluated thoroughly, and for you to be sure that such vendor or such contractor is highly knowledgeable enough to deliver such service. So for you to know about that, you have to contact the HSE team. So the HSE team have their own work to do by asking some questions, or probably asking the vendor to give a scanned copy of some certificate that certify them to be able to deliver that particular item, probably chemical, like I said, or to deliver that particular services. Now, pre-qualification process in procurement is vital for you to, for once, to know that a particular vendor is good enough to deliver a particular service, especially on this call now, HSE service or HSE item. And even once you must have sent that RFQ, that is what they call technical bid evaluation. Now, whereas the procurement team, we have to send an on-price bid to the end user. On this call now, the HSE. Now, the HSE now have to evaluate thoroughly all the papers, the certificates involved, regarding that particular item or services, HSE item or HSE service that want to be delivered. So after which they will now score them, and the report is going to be sent to the procurement team. And that is how we can get involved in all these procurement and HSE collaboration work, so that there won't be any kind of conflict. Now, why HSE and procurement conflict occur? Because there are different priorities and KPIs. Like I said before, the HSE team has their own priorities and KPI. Procurement team has their own priority and KPI. Cost versus safety focus. Procurement team is going to focus on commercial values, which is the cost. Now, HSE team is going to focus on safety values. So how can we match this together to make sure that items or services that are being delivered are satisfy the same two values or two priorities that are involved within the two teams? And this is where collaboration between these two teams comes along. Then schedule pressure on part of the delivery for the on the part of a procurement team, so that it won't slow down or have a kind of a delay on the delivery, project delivery. The regulatory and also compliance demands from the regulators. These are the areas where conflict occurs, and when these have been critically and managed by the two teams, then you will see that the project will be achieved in such areas. Then common conflicts that actually occurs between procurement team and HSE team, as highlighted on this slide, is urgent HSE need versus procurement lead time. HSE will tell you that this items is needed urgently. Procurement team will make you to understand that all procurement process must be followed. Because if procurement processes are not followed during audit of such procurement operation, there will be problem for the procurement team. That's one of the conflicts. Then also vendor selection approval. Vendor selection approval, like I said before, any vendor that needs to be onboarded into an organization needs to be qualified, and the end user, the service or the item that is going to be delivered by that particular vendor must be technically evaluated. That vendor must be technically evaluated if they are able or they are certified to actually deliver that particular item or services. And the person or the group of people or the team that can do such technical evaluation regarding to this topic now is HSE team, if that service or item is an HSE or service item. Then another thing also is local content versus HSE compliance. Then contract HSE clauses. This we'll be looking at as we move ahead. So HSE is on certified safety ingredients, while procurement seeks cost savings, the risk of substandard materials. HSE will insist on certified safety item because uncertified safety item will cause a major risk for the project that such item or services is going to be used on. And at the same time, as that is on, procurement also seek for cost savings, and this is majorly being achieved in terms of negotiation. When I say negotiation, I don't mean commercial negotiations alone. Negotiation can also come in from the aspect of contract terms and clauses, contract terms and conditions, delivery terms, payment terms, service delivery contracts terms. These are areas also where procurement can also save cost and also save some terms and values for the organization to make sure that such thing goes on well. And cannot just go on without the involvement of the end user. On this call, like I said, HSE. And as a result of this, you will notice that the risk that will be involved in that line will be reduced drastically. Now, cost versus safety. So define minimum safety. Now, during pre-qualification processes, while procurement must have involved the HSE team, technically evaluate such and certify them if they can actually deliver the service or item. So if they cannot, the HSE team will have to give their own report that this vendor is substandard. Then if actually the HSE team, then we can now have what is called an vendor approved list. Now, what I mean by vendor approved list is that from HSE team, there are some vendors that they must have been certified that they can deliver any HSE item or services. Engineering team also, probably civil department must have also have some vendor that they must have pre-qualified and certified that they can deliver they can deliver civil items or services. Same as mechanical, electrical, and the rest. So now, for a procurement personnel to do a successful work, he must go to that approved vendor list by that end user. The vendor list that the end user or the technical team must have approved. But on this call now, the vendor list that HSE must have approved. Then you pick your vendor randomly and send them RFQ. You are sending them RFQ because they are already qualified. But if they are not yet qualified, you have to go through the process of qualification involving the HSE team or the end user team to make sure that there are no conflicts. Now, apply total cost ownership approach for procurement to make sure that value is being saved or cost is being saved. A total cost approach needs to be applied. When I'm talking about approach of total cost ownership, we're not talking about the total cost of the item alone. We're talking about all the costs that are involved in procuring that particular item from the beginning till delivery, even till the period whereby you are going to demobilize such particular item from site. All those costs need to be evaluated, and the procurement team needs to look into them critically to see how they can maximize and optimize the costs. Now, urgency versus procurement lead time. Unplanned safety risk. So, delayed procurement approval. These are also the aspects whereby procurement also can also have clashes with HSE team. If take for instance, purchase order has been released and that particular way is not being approved as early as it were, and the HSE team is beckoning on the procurement team that this needs to be delivered as soon as possible. And procurement is actually following up on the approval, but the management are probably being slow. So they need, like I said, they need to be carried along in every nitty-gritty of that particular item so that they will know the updates of that particular item or services that such orders will be issued on. Also, operational pressure in terms of delivery of project also comes off on the procurement aspect, also on HSE aspect. Emergency procurement procedure. So the items that are needed urgently, there are ways that procurement can actually go about them and make sure that such item will not cause a kind of delay from any end user, be it from HSE, be it from civil, be it from mechanical or electrical. But on this call, we are focusing on the HSE. So one of the ways that procurement can reduce such lead time or solve that particular problem is to come up with what is called framework agreement contract. Now, when we're talking about framework agreement contract, we are talking about an agreement or a contract that is existing between a procurement team, an organization, and a particular vendor in a way that contract must have already arranged that so items will be delivered. Must have agreed on a particular cost. But those items will not be delivered until there's a call for from the procurement, so to that vendor to be delivered. It can also be called a call-out contract. So when the item is needed urgently, you just beckon on the vendor or the contractor to deliver the particular item or services. And after which the delivery has been done, and the HSE team has certified that the delivery of such item or service is compliant with all regulations and with all, then payment can be made via the payment terms, and the invoices can also be raised, for example. Then critical safety management, critical safety stock management. So on some items that have a huge safety management critical, so procurement team can have what is called a buffer stock. So in collaboration with the store manager needs to do what is called a forecast and keep the procurement team abreast whenever such safety critical items are going out of stock. So that when they are going out of stock, and if procurement team has been informed that such safety critical item is going out of stock, procurement team will have to use, like before, the call-out contract, which is on the framework agreement, to immediately make sure that such item is being restocked. So these are ways that emergency procurement procedures can be guided, and there won't be a delay from end user, or there won't be a delay on the project. Like I said before, vendor approval list is very, very important, because the certification gap needs to be looked into by the end user. On this call now, the HSE team. Then the record of such vendor, that is looking at the past track record of some item of services that such vendor has delivered before. The procurement team needs to gather this, send it to the HSE team. Then when they look at it, they're able to profile their valid recommendation, be it a poor HSE record for that particular vendor or contractor, or a good, valid HSE record. So this will guide the procurement team on what vendors to use. So resolution, vendor management. So the procurement team needs to, like I said, carry it along the end user to make sure that vendor is being managed properly. So there should be on the vendor approved list for the HSE item services, there should be what is called the regular audits on those vendors by the HSE team in collaboration with the procurement team. So after the HSE team must have carried out their due diligence in auditing those vendors, they send us the report, and they send the procurement team the report. Procurement team will now look at the report and be able to say, okay, according to the score sheet or the KPI that are on ground, this particular vendor should be blacklisted. This particular vendor should keep ongoing with business. Then also, what are the corrective actions that also could be used before a vendor could be blacklisted? The end user, which is on this call now, HSE team, and the procurement team needs to sit together to see if there is any corrective action that can be carried out on that particular vendor. Even for them to update their certificate, or to do a kind of a training for them so they can be updated on their regular operation. So these are the suggestions that corrective action suggestions that can be involved on that aspect also. The local content compliance. Of course, when local content come for their audits, we need to be compliant because of the reputation and safety risks of the organization. So all these audits that the end user, which is HSE now, are doing for the vendor approved list, HSE vendor approved list, needs to be looked into by the regulators, and by that doing, they will know that okay, this particular organization is doing what they're supposed to do when it comes to delivery of item in terms of safety. Then they will also know that the vendors or contractors that are being involved in the operation of that particular project for that organization are local. What I mean by local, I mean the national vendors, contractors. That's what they're being involved into. Now, resolution. Sorry. So, contract and HSE plus conflict. So now, on each contract, because when you are setting out purchase order or service order, terms and conditions needs to be applied for that particular order that you are setting out. Be it which is going to be involved payment terms, delivery terms. Now, service condition delivery, which will state the kind of certificate that is being expected of that particular vendor to deliver with the item. And all these things is going to be looked into when they are delivering the item or services, or after they have delivered. Because when they are delivering, the co-equity team, also with the end user, which is the HSE team, we have to verify all these things to make sure that comply what is actually requested. I mean, the item that is actually requested or the service that just be rendered. Now, resolution contract alignment. So in the contract, there should be some HSE contract clauses which must certify the HSE KPI. So during delivery, this is where the HSE team will focus their attention on. And if those KPIs are not being certified, then penalties will be used to such vendors. So you can see how procurement and HSE team are collaborating together to make sure that a valid certified item is being delivered, to make sure that the project that is on ground is being also delivered as at when on schedule and also on budget. Now, best practice collaboration model. Like I said before, HSE team needs to be carried along from the beginning, from the process of the qualification of any vendor that will be brought in for HSE item or services delivery. So if you look at racing matrix, now racing matrix talks about racing means response, accountability, consulted and informed, which the response aspect says the person who do the work, that is the procurement officer that sent out the RFQ on HSE item or services. That are the person that is responsible for that particular item, HSE item. Accountable, the person who is ultimately aware, who is ultimately answerable. For example, the supply chain manager approving the vendor selection is ultimately answerable because it ought to have considered the HSE team to get a certified valid report from them on that particular vendor. Consulted. So subject matter experts who provide inputs or advice. So during the procurement processes, the subject matter experts. On this call, we are talking about the HSE now. So the HSE team needs to be consulted and be carried along. And the communication linkway should not be only once. It should be a two-way communication. In that the procurement team consults them and they also give report of that particular item, of that particular vendor to the procurement team to certify if that particular vendor can be used for the services or item that will be delivered. So there should be a two-way communication mode that should exist between the procurement team and the HSE team. So HSE manager reviewing safety critical equipment specifications and certificate of that particular service that should be delivered, or that particular item that should be delivered. Now, inform people who need to be kept updated. They are not the subject matter, but they need to know what is going on. For example, the project manager needs to know what is going on. They need to be kept updated. They need to be informed about what is going on regarding that particular item or services for such projects to be readily delivered on schedule. So on this, you can see from this matrix table that I've opened, you can see the activities, divine PPE specifications, vendor pre-qualifications, technical and HSE evaluation, commercial evaluation, final vendor approval, and delivery and inspection. On the HSE part, HSE is responsible for the PPE specifications because they are the one that is going to state the specifications that is needed to the procurement. So procurement will be consulted, the supply chain manager will be informed, and the project manager also will be informed for their. Now, during the vendor pre-qualification processes, the HSE will be consulted, but the team that is actually responsible for vendor pre-qualification is the procurement. That's why you ask how. So, while the supply chain manager is answerable because procurement is under supply chain management, and project manager needs to be informed. Then when it also comes to technical and HSE evaluation, so the team that is highly responsible is the HSE team. That's why you are seeing them under HAB. The procurement team will be consulted. That is when two-way communication line comes in. Responsible, they will be after they must have been evaluated by the HSE team. The report of that evaluation being passed across to the procurement, and that is what procurement is going to work on. Then the supply chain manager is going to be answerable, of course, because the team is under him. Then the project manager just needs to be informed about it for its validation. Then the commercial evaluation of any action comes to the procurement team. Now, based on this call now, the HSE just need to be consulted. If such item is an HSE item or services, need to be consulted. You consult them to provide technically, but they don't need to do any kind of responsibility when it comes to the commercial evaluation, because everything about commercial belongs to procurement and the supply chain management team. So the supply chain manager also needs to be aware, and the project manager needs to be informed. Then the final vendor approval. For the final vendor approval, the HSE team, which must have looked critically into the certifications of that particular vendor, just needs to be consulted. The procurement team that goes along on the vendor pre-qualification are majorly being responsible for such. Then answerable by the supply chain manager, like I said, project manager needs to be informed if all the processes are duly certified. Then delivery and inspection. On this particular point, HSE team and the procurement team are majorly being involved. They are responsible. Now, HSE team is responsible in the sense that when the item or services is being delivered, the HSE team must evaluate, check critically the particular item that is being delivered, if it actually met their HSE KPI. if all certificate that have been delivered with such particular item is valid. And if such certificate is not been has not been expired in any way, there have been instances where certificate needs to be confirmed from the OEM, because some vendors are very, very funny. We said certificate is being item is being delivered with a particular certificate. The HSE team get the certificate, then it needs to confirm the validity of that particular certificate with OEM. That is the case that the OEM rejects the certificate outrightly, that they are not the one that use the certificate for that particular item for the vendor. So eventually that vendor in that organization, our organization there where I was working before, has to be blacklisted immediately. Then so that's the aspect of HSE team. Then procurement team is also responsible because that particular item must be delivered as at when due within the delivery terms. It must not exceed the delivery terms that is being recommended or that they actually be agreed on in the contract. Supply chain manager needs to be aware, and project manager also needs to be what? To be informed. Now, best collaboration models, joint KPIs. So regular cross-functional meetings. So another way, one of the major way that HSE team and procurement team can work together smoothly is for them to be having what is called, sorry, my time is up. What is called irregular cross-functional meetings, which we help them, the HSE team now, to keep the procurement team highly updated about the KPIs and the requirements that are being required from safety vendors. The leadership culture also to be managed critically when you are talking about safety core values and also balance cost and risk decisions. So, lastly, HSE and procurement are both risk managers. Collaboration reduces incidents and costs. Then early engagement also prevents conflicts, as have been discussed. Thank you very much for my time. I really appreciate the privilege of being on this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oluleke Ogunremi. Thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for the insightful topic you took this morning. I'm sure a couple of us have picked one or two things from this webinar this morning, and we are taking it to our organization and put it in practice. While we wait for Mrs. Fatima, we have a few questions here for Mr. Ogunremi. Mr. Ogunremi, are you still here with us, please?
Yes, I'm here, please. Thank you.
Okay. Somebody asked if the HSE is considered major end user of procured items.
Let me say this. During my delivery, you will notice that any items that comes from a particular department, in terms of request or any requisitions rather, go straight to the procurement team. So procurement team is responsible to deliver items that will be used on a particular project or by the general organization as a whole to that particular end user. Now, HSE requisitions, when being received, all the specifications that is needed is involved or included in that requisition list item. Take for example, you are requesting for a safety boot. Now, what size? You don't just say safety boot. No. What is the size of the safety boot you are requesting? What color do you want? Now, what certificate should come from the OEM of that safety boot? Because some safety boot has expiration dates. So when delivering, the procurement team has to carry along the HSE team to make sure that they verify the specification that is being requested for on that particular item. We, procurement team, are not going to do that. It is the end user that should do it. Are you certified? And after they are verified and they are certified, they gave a material receiving report. Now, under the material receiving report, the specification section will be there, excuse me, which has to be approved or validated by the end user that the item delivered meets the need for delivery. So these are the ways that all teams can be carried out, especially the end user team. But on this particular one now, the HSE. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'll be able to answer the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oluleke Ogunremi, for the feedback. Okay, I hope you've been able to answer his question because I understood everything you just said. I hope he does too. Okay, Mrs. Fatima, are you here now? Are you ready for us now?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, ma. Good morning, ma. Thank you for joining us, ma. We are really honored to have you here with us this morning. Mrs. Fatima, please, over to you.
Right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Green Shield Safety, for having me today. And thank you to everyone for joining today. Just to give a little context, Mr. Leke has already spoken so much and so well about the topic, HSE and procurement, a call for collaboration. It's all about how two critical teams in the organization, the Health, Safety and Environment Department and the procurement team, can work together to keep workplaces safe. Too often, safety requirements and procurement decisions clash. If you haven't experienced it, kudos to you. Enjoy it while it lasts. But maybe when you change organization, the story might change. So it never hurts to be prepared ahead of time, and the clashes can lead to delays. It can lead to project delays. It can lead to non-compliance with client requirements and even accidents in some cases. So today we're going to be discussing why this happens. Mr. Leke has already thrown so much light into some of the reasons why it happens. I will be talking about the risk involved when it happens and practical ways to bridge the gap so we can protect people while still being efficient and cost conscious in sourcing our PPE. So we all know construction projects in Nigeria. And if you've been to any construction projects, you will see workers, some fully donned in PPE, the required PPE, some wearing substandard PPE, some wearing worn-out PPE, and some not even using PPE at all. Now, while the reasons for this are varied, but one of it is that at times procurement clash with safety, and then the needful wasn't done. So from factories to construction sites to oil fixtures offshore and so many other project sites, it's shown repeatedly that when hazards and risks are well known, when they're identified, when they're discussed at the onset, and when we identify the right PPE, you communicate it to the procurement department, and they are not clashing with you. They are not saying, oh, why are you bringing up this cost? Why is this so expensive? Why does this personnel need to use this? Then, we can move forward. We can collaborate when they are not raising all those questions, when they understand why you're doing what you are doing. So confusion in terms of communication can result in delays. It can result in incidents, and all are preventable when there is collaboration. The real challenge we face today, we have two departments, we have shared goals. We have one common goal in terms of the organizational goal, which is the bottom line of the organization at the end of the day, business profitability, sustainability, and continuous improvement of the organization. But we also have different priorities. We also have different KPIs, like Mr. Leke has pointed out. And while HSE teams prioritize protection and compliance, procurement teams tend to focus on value optimization and delivery. And this divergence at times can create friction in the workplace, can create friction in delivery of what we need to do in terms of PPE requirements. So next slide. So going into the presentation proper, the objectives of this presentation today is, first of all, to identify the pain points, recognize where HSE and procurement priorities conflict and create operational friction. We need to understand why the conflicts occur between HSE and procurement. We need to recognize the risk when collaboration is missing and build understanding among the two teams. And we need to explore practical solutions that will align the processes, align what we're discussing today, and make us foster better collaboration so that the end result, which of course is productivity for the organization, profitability for the organization, would be achieved. And then, by yourself in your teams, you can define actionable steps that you can take in your teams or in your organization, no matter how small that unit is, to ensure that you're delivering quality PPE that would serve the purpose for which it's supposed to serve at the end of the day. So these objectives will guide our discussions today. Can you go to the next slide, please? All right, so why are we having this conversation now? Why does it matter? Now, there are some key statistics, and this is just from global research. It shows that in workplaces where PPE is available, it's correct, and, it's provided on time. At times, consistent use is not even guaranteed. So only about 64% of workers actually use PPE correctly. And it's been identified that improper use often starts at procurement. Now, another statistic, that nearly 89% of safety professionals have reported across their projects, across their operations. They report non-compliance due to gaps between HSE and procurement. And this is also global statistics, it's not Nigerian statistics. And then we have between 25 to 40% of PPE misalignment. And then, of course, this now increases workplace incidents. So when HSE and procurement don't align, There's financial impacts, there's human costs, and they can be substantial. There can be safety incidents. And safety incidents, it's not just costs in terms of money. There's also the moral cost. There's also the reputational cost. There's also the morale. It actually even has a ripple effect far beyond what we can see. That's why the iceberg concept in safety, what you see is smaller than what is beneath the water. So the cost you see at the surface are actually minimal compared to the hidden cost of having a safety incident as a result of PPE non-compliance. So let's move along. Let's explore the current challenges that contribute to this risk. Let's first of all understand the HSE and procurement interface. Now, these are the HSE team's role and concerns. Risk identification and mitigation, and this is for any HSE team, this will be your focus at work. This is your focus in the organization. You want to identify risks, you want to mitigate them adequately. You want to comply with safety standards, especially when you're certified to international standards, or when you even have client requirements to meet up with. You want to ensure that your workers are protected at all times, and thereby you put protocols in place. And you want to prevent incidents by all means necessary. You want to ensure that you're planning for emergencies and you're able to respond to those emergencies when they occur. And you are driving at a continuous improvement culture. Now, for procurement, their role and concerns include cost optimization and value delivery. They want to select the best suppliers for the organization and manage them as well. All the while, also being cost effective while at it. So they will negotiate contracts and terms that will favor the organization, that will favor the bottom line of the organization. They want to ensure that delivery timelines are being met and materials that are procured are reliable. And of course, they want to ensure that there's quality assurance in the process and plan continuously to ensure that there's no disruption in the supply chain. Now, these roles and concerns, like Mr. Leke said, are what informs the KPIs of the two different teams. Now, despite the different KPIs that the two teams have and the different focus and the different roles and the different concerns, every purchasing decision in the organization carries safety implications. And this is even beyond PPE. So every safety requirement impacts procurement choices. It impacts, yes. Success for both functions mean different things, but then it also means the same thing. Success for HSE means, oh, I've achieved all these KPIs. And for procurement, it means I've achieved all these KPIs. But guess what? You've achieved your KPIs, but you've impacted the organization in the wrong way. Maybe there's an incident that has now affected the reputation of the organization. Then we were not successful. That's what it means, despite the fact that we achieved our KPIs. So there are conflicts, but these conflicts can be managed. They can be managed with collaboration. Let's go to the next slide. These are the critical friction points that have been identified. There are more, but these are just a few I want to talk about. PPE selection, choosing between lowest price and highest protection. If you've experienced this, please drop a comment in the chat box. If you've experienced procurement advising you that, oh, I've done a market survey and there's a vendor that would offer a lower price. If you've experienced this, drop a comment in the chat box. So choosing between lowest price and highest protection. Not asking about quality certifications because of budget constraints. So we're a lot less concerned about quality certifications for some procurement teams. All they are just concerned about is the cost. And at times also the speed with which the vendor can deliver. So they don't want delay in the delivery timeline. So a vendor can deliver on time, can deliver promptly, can deliver quickly, but then the quality of the PPE that is being delivered is questionable. The vendor has no certifications. The vendor has probably not even gone through a pre-qualification process. Secondly, there's safety compliance. There's friction because HSE people would probably be, oh, this certification, this standard needs to be complied with, that standard needs to be complied with, OSHA, ANSI, ISO. And the procurement team is just wondering, or the procurement person is just wondering, you're speaking jargon, I don't understand what you're saying. Does it look like a hard hat? Yes. Does it look like a safety boot? Yes. But are all safety boots created equal? No. No. So some PPE, especially in critical operations, require certification. And you need to verify that those PPE are actually certified, rated, genuine products. And if you're working in an industry where you have stringent clients that are coming to come and audit you, some of these things are what they will check. If, for instance, you are an oil and gas servicing company, before you can even deploy your personnel to site, they will check their PPE. And if it's not compliant, then they will stop the work. And of course, this is now going to impact on schedule. It's going to impact on productivity. Thirdly, we have sourcing decisions. We work in Nigeria, and at times, I want to help my friend, or I want to help someone I know, an acquaintance, or I have a referral from somewhere, and I want to use this referral. Or it's even come maybe from top down that this person should be the vendor. So such decisions can actually impact on what is being delivered, can impact on the credibility of the products that are being delivered. Also, balancing total cost of ownership with upfront pricing. They've said these boots is 40,000. This safety boots is 40,000. But the person is going to use the boots for 3 months, and then the boots are going to fray or going to give up. Oh, but you've procured boots for maybe 100,000, 150,000, and that lasts for the year. For the year. But you choose to buy 40,000 boots that last for 3 months, and then in the year, you now have to buy 3 orders or 4 orders. So what's the total cost at the end of the day? Let's go to the next slide. Okay, I'm checking the chat box. Yes, you've experienced this, all right. All right, so what happens when these issues, when this friction happens, when safety and costs are being put on a balancing scale, are being weighed side by side? And safety is taking the dip, and the costs on the scale is coming up, and safety is taking the dip, and they are prioritizing cost above safety. What can happen? One, we can have operational disruptions. I give an example where you send a personnel to site, and the client has requested for the personnel's PPE cannot go offshore without the PPE being verified, and they've checked the PPE and it's not up to the standard, and that personnel has to be sent back. We are not able to meet with timelines. So we've disrupted that project. We've disrupted the operations. And let's even assume that the person actually was passed. But then because of the substandard quality of the PPE, there's now an incident. And this incident results in halting production or a project or operations. It's still projects delayed and some costs to be incurred. And possibly maybe asset damage as well. Secondly, we have regulatory penalties. We can have fines, citations, and enforcement, especially if it now results in a recordable incident or a reportable incident. And once you have recurring incidents like that, it impacts on your reputation. So reputational damage as well. If you keep having recurring incidents or they keep flagging issues when you send your personnel to site, it erodes client confidence. It erodes their trust. And then maybe the gates they used to verify your personnel before they come on board was 1 gate or 2 gates before. They now increase the gates for you. They make the checks more stringent as a result of repeat offenses or repeat incidents or repeat cases of non-compliance. Employee morale as well. I've seen several cases where, you give the right PPE to personnel, they're appreciative. They know that the organization is taking care of them, is thinking about them, thinking about their safety, thinking about their safe return back to their families. And when employees see that the organization doesn't put value in their safety, does not put value in their welfare, it can actually lead to staff attrition. staff start to exit quietly. I hope we are following. Let's go to the next slide. So still continuing, there are several impacts of misalignment across people, projects, and compliance. For people, injury rates increase, workplace stress rises, employee turnover accelerates. I've mentioned staff exit. The staff start exiting when they see that the organization does not put value on their safety. And then the safety culture of the organization deteriorates. For projects, delays and rework, scope changes and budget overruns, quality issues, timeline is affected, ultimately affecting the bottom line, affecting profitability of the organization in the long run. For compliance, you keep having recurring audit findings. Your certifications are at risk, especially when you're certified to international standards and they keep having recurring audit findings that are not being closed out. And there's no sign of continuous improvement. When there's an incident, insurance premiums increase. When you have repeat incidents, some insurance companies will not even want to touch you, will not even want to come near you. And when you're now bidding for projects, it can affect your likelihood of getting that bid won. So contract opportunities become lost. So misalignment between HSE and procurement, it doesn't just create inefficiency, it actually creates systematic risk, and it compounds over time. It compounds over time. It's just a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there, but it is compounding over time until it results into something that is like a big boom. And then we just wake up suddenly one day and say, oh, how did we get here? But, oh, the signs were there. It's been showing up in little bits across several operational dimensions. Next slide. All right, so I'm just quickly going to gloss over this because I've spoken to it earlier. So HSE and procurement, our perspectives can be different, but we can start to learn to align, to collaborate. Mr. Leke spoke about some of the measures, some of the strategies and approaches we can use. I'll just be skimming over them because he has really done a deep dive into that. Let's go to the next slide. Before starting any PPE selection, the first task that the HSE department or the HSE team goes through is a risk assessment. They need to understand the hazards associated with the operation or with the task, with the job, put the controls in place. Now, PPE is not the first form of control. There's a hierarchy of control. PPE is actually the last form of control. But PPE as a control also needs to be risk assessed. So it's after the risk assessment of the job is done that you would now identify the PPE to issue to the personnel. And for PPE to be supplied, there are certain standards that are applicable to certain PPE items, certain ratings that must go with the PPE. And when you are quoting standards, you're quoting certifications, I said earlier, you are talking kind of gibberish or jargon. You need to break it down simply in terms that they can understand that, oh, like an ISO certified organization, it shows a certain level of credibility in the operations of that organization. That organization has put certain processes in place, has put certain procedures in place, is following certain international rules, procedures, guidelines that is informing the decisions they are making on a daily basis, that they are ensured that this organization is being compliant and can be worked with, can be trusted. And the same for PPE. So those standards and certifications that go with the PPE is just showing that some level of work has been put into developing this PPE. We have internationally recognized standards frameworks, that are used. ANSI, ICER. For products, safety goggles, safety shoes, safety harnesses, they need to be rated, they need to be certified, and you need to check for all these ratings when you're issuing the PPE. And then for some category of PPE, for some particular kind of operations, construction, industrial, you need to issue industrial safety helmets, not just the hazards you see out in the public, not just that plastic hazard. You need to issue an industrial safety helmet. So all the PPE have their ratings, they have their standards, they have their certifications, and they need to be complied with. In oil and gas, standards exist for a reason. So they define the minimum level of protection that is acceptable for a given hazard. And once you've identified the hazards in the job, in the task, and you've seen the standard that applies to that particular job, construction, you need to issue a certain type of PPE. Industrial hats, you're working in a flammable environment, you need to issue fire retardant, anti-static coveralls, and all that. So you make that your baseline, but you carry the procurement team along. You break it down to them in simple terms. Now, let me give you an example. For instance, in the oil and gas industry, for certain activities, PPE must meet specific standards, and some are tied to client or regulatory expectations. So if the equipment is supplied without the required certification, even if it looks similar or cheaper, it will fail their check, it will fail the audit, and it will be rejected on site. It will be rejected. Let me not give you a personal example, but I've actually experienced that. It went through our own checks, and that PPE passed our own internal check, but hey, they had more stringent checks. So there are checks that they subject PPE to. And once it is rejected, Mr. Leke mentioned that, some clients can blacklist you. The same thing goes for you, the service provider. You can also be blacklisted. It can also happen the other way. You can blacklist the vendors that are not supplying quality things to you, but you can also be blacklisted when your personnel are going to sites without the right protection. And worst case scenario, there is now an incident because they now use the wrong PPE. There was an incident where the safety boots that was issued to a personnel wasn't appropriate. And they didn't offer protection when an incident happened. And there was an object that dropped from height and cut off the personnel's leg, went through the PPE. So apparently the boots were not even steel toes. And that personnel got amputated by an incident that could have been avoided. So this is where collaboration becomes critical. HSE's role is to clearly define which standards apply, understand the hazards in the job, in the operations, do a proper risk assessment, and as a result of the risk assessment, make recommendations of the PPE that would apply. And of course, need to take a stand on what is non-negotiable. And after a discussion with procurement's role is now to supply or source for suppliers that can meet those standards, carry out the pre-qualification, verify the certifications, and then flag challenges early, not after the purchase, not after the items have been bought and are in store. So they need to flag challenges early if they are not able to meet up with the vendors, or if the vendors are not meeting up with the requirements, so that there can be options, there can be alternatives. Sorry, how well am I doing on time? I didn't even ask, how many minutes do I have? I hope I'm still audible, though.
Yes, you're still audible.
Okay,
You're supposed to have 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, all right. All right, let's go to the next slide. I'll run through it. I'll run through it quickly now. Next slide. All right, real conflicts, and these are incidents across different industries. I've just anonymized the examples so that I'm not putting any company, any organization's name, but these are just examples of real life scenarios of issues that happened. So incident one, there was a compromise that backfired. The procurement team had selected a lower cost gloves because they had a budget target. So they went to the market, selected the lower cost gloves. And then the workers used the gloves and had chemical burns because the gloves, of course, were not the chemical leather gloves. And this resulted in $450,000 being paid in workers' compensation, lost time. And you see, the budget target that was being met, or that was supposed to be met, was not achieved at the end of the day. Another incident, HSE had specified ANSI-rated safety glasses. Procurement sourced something that looked like it, maybe from Gigi or Jumia, and they didn't check for the certification, they didn't verify the certification. It failed the client's check, and they had to replace this. They had already procured that one, but when the clients checked, it failed. So they now had to procure the right one at 3 times the cost. The third one, the procurement chose the lowest bidder because they were also trying to save cost. And this, of course, led to extended lead time because the bidder was also sourcing from somewhere else. Work began, and this was a time-bound operation. Work began before the PPE arrived, and as a result, project was delayed when they got to site. Workers used inadequate substitutes because they were trying to meet up, and this resulted in a near-miss incident. And several incidents like that, and these are just a few examples. So for us, especially if you're working in an industry where you're servicing different client requirements, you need to have a standard defined. In fact, it's recommended that you have a PPE program. You have a PPE program, you have a documented PPE procedure and a documented PPE program that you're following, and a PPE policy as well. PPE policy that carries leadership commitments signed by the top management. Let's go to the next slide. All right, we're gradually drawing to a close. I'm not really going to go so much into these because Mr. Leke has talked about so much about how we're going to collaborate, how we are collaborating, and how we can improve collaboration and, deliver effective outcomes for the organization ultimately. So to ensure alignment, HSE and procurement need to be talking to each other. They need to be talking to each other at every stage. They should not work in silos. They need to be talking to each other at every point in time. So early engagement is key. HSE should involve procurement once there's a project and they know, oh, we're going to deploy personnel. Or once there's a contract that's been awarded, oh, these are the requirements on this contract. HSE, that has the understanding of the required standards, needs to break it down to procurement, needs to simplify the terms, needs to clarify the implications if those standards are not complied with. And there needs to be continuous dialogue, regular dialogue, continuous. So there should be constant reviews, periodic reviews, continuous reviews across both teams. In fact, when procurement is engaging the vendor, they need to both do the site checks, they need to both carry out the physical evaluation and the technical evaluation as well. So both teams have input into the evaluation process. HSE also needs to understand the procurement aspect and understand that procurement is also driving towards the good of the organization. And HSE needs to also consider that while standards are being enforced or are being followed stringently, there can still be options. So you can, for instance, consider Nigerian vendors that are certified. Yes. Consider Nigerian vendors, especially with the NCDMB Act. Consider the local content, insofar as they are verified by the Nigerian Content Board. They are qualified and they are selected and they've been communicated. We have several vendors like that. We have several suppliers like that. So consider options, especially if the client is not insistent about a particular brand. We can also patronize our local, I won't call them local because the production is actually of international standard. They are certified. So not local, just Nigerian, yes, Nigerian. So Nigerian standards, Nigerian products as well. And following these principles, of course, would help us reduce the risk and strengthen trust across the teams. And ultimately, we'll be working collaboratively, effectively, and delivering the organization's goals. All right, next slide. So the practical solutions that would ensure that we are achieving success in HSE. Our requirements are risk-driven. So we start with hazard identification, not price points. It's not by price. So we document the risk levels. You do your risk assessment, you document the risk levels, and you document what is required to protect the personnel, and you inform the procurement team on your recommendation. And this forms the foundation for sourcing. It forms the foundation for the procurement team to work with. Supplier evaluation. Both teams need to be involved from the onset in identifying the vendors and evaluating them technically. Cost value analysis, I've mentioned this. Consider options. Consider Nigerian content, Nigerian suppliers, Nigerian manufacturers, so far as they are approved and certified. There also needs to be cross-functional training between the two teams. So HSE needs the procurement process, and procurement needs to have an understanding of the safety standards. And by so doing, the dialogue will be continuous. We are rubbing minds together, achieving one goal. So there will be a shared language, there will be mutual understanding. If I have challenges, I'll bring it to the procurement team that, oh, these are my client's requirements, and explain myself. And procurement also needs to understand. So there should be mutual understanding that we are all working towards one goal. We are working towards the goal, the strategic goal of the organization, to move the organization forward, to help the organization achieve its objectives at the end of the day. We need to understand each other. We need to ensure that dialogue is continuous, and we need to collaborate. Before I quickly run through the key takeaways, because I've come to the end, I just want to walk us through a typical EPC project scenario. If you work in the oil and gas or engineering services in Nigeria, you would understand or recognize. But it can also be applicable in other operations as well, in construction and other projects or other operations. At the early stage of a project, HSE has identified specific hazards. They've identified earthwork, lifting operations, noise exposure, interface with live facilities, and then the PPE specifications were developed accordingly and issued as part of the project requirement. So from the get-go, there's a project HSE plan that has been developed, and a project risk assessment has been carried out, and then the PPE that are suitable for the project, for the operations of the project, have been identified. However, procurement timelines were tight. So the project was supposed to commence in 2 weeks, and they were going to site in 2 weeks, and procurement couldn't deliver. Procurement had contacted the vendor, the pre-qualified vendor, but the vendor was also having to source because it was a large project, the number of personnel were large. So there was pressure to mobilize quickly. So because of that, they needed to go to site. There was a compromise. And this compromise now resulted in an incident. And this affected the project. It affected the project. And this was a project that was just starting up. So while it looked like the best way or the best approach, they were trying to collaborate, but it resulted in an incident, and it resulted in reputational damage. So at every project onset, as HSE is putting their plans in place, they need to carry procurement along, so that if there are timelines, if there are tight timelines, tight schedules, this can be communicated, and communication can also be transmitted onward to the client as well. That these are the challenges, and if we do not comply with these requirements, these are the likely consequences. It's better to be late than to be sorry. It's better to be late than to have an incident. So on that note, these are the key takeaways. Safety is a shared responsibility between HSE and procurement. Safety is not just the responsibility of HSE. It's actually everyone's responsibility, including procurement. When there's misalignment, when there's lack of communication, or when the two teams are chasing their different KPIs rather than aligning KPIs, it can actually increase risk, increase cost, and actually result in project delays or operational delays, ultimately affecting productivity and profitability. Early collaboration and communication can prevent these gaps. Mr. Leke has shared the RASI, he's shared the stakeholder matrix, and these are the tools that can be used. The practical steps that have been communicated today, Mr. Leke has shared, and I've shared as well, can help to ensure that we are compliant, that we are efficient, and that we are working together towards one goal. And, ensuring worker safety. I'm going to leave us with one call to action today. Within your teams, within your departments, within your organizations, you can review your PPE procurement process. If you don't have a PPE policy, I would recommend you adopt one. You would suggest it to top management, and this kind of it makes everyone committed to it. It makes everyone committed to it. And safety should be linked to procurement criteria. Should also be linked to procurement KPI as well. The same way budget is linked to HSE KPI. Let's ensure that we are having continuous dialogue with the procurement team. Let's have joint review meetings. Let's visit the vendors' locations together. Let's verify the PPE together. Let's carry out the pre-qualification process together. Let's always ensure transparent communication. If HSE is having challenges, communicate to the procurement team. If procurement team is having challenges, communicate to the HSE team. Let's ensure that there's continuous dialogue. So I'll leave you with this. A zero incident workplace isn't achieved through perfect policies. It's built on collaboration between safety professionals and procurement professionals who understand that compliance and efficiency aren't mutually exclusive. They actually work together to ensure that the company achieves its goals and objectives at the end of the day. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you very much, Ma, for this insightful topic. Wow, this is wonderful. This is really, really wonderful. This is really wonderful. And we are glad you could share this with us this morning. We'll move to the question and answer section. And I have a couple of questions here that we'll be going over. We'll take a few of them. And if we are not able to attend to your question today, you can send it to our email and you will get your answers. All right. So to the questions, what should the HSE team do if the procurement team refuses to carry them along on provision of safety kits and equipment? I think this is for Mrs. Fatima.
Serious question. And, that is the meat of the matter. Is what the entire conversation is about.
Yes.
Not being carried along and going ahead to procure PPE. So there needs to be communication. You need to find out why they've gone to procure the PPE for personnel. What kind of risk assessment went into that procurement decision? Is it the right PPE for the job? How were they able to ascertain that it's the right PPE for the job? So there needs to be an engagement with the procurement team to find out the why. And if with the why that they're providing, you've checked the PPE and it's not compliant, then it needs to be escalated to top management. There needs to be an intervention in such practice. I hope the person asking the question has top management buying to their safety. And like I've recommended, have a PPE policy that is signed by top management and have a PPE program in place that informs how the PPE process is being followed through in your organization. And once this is documented, it needs to be implemented. You also need to bring it to the understanding of management that while procurement might be making the decisions, once there's an incident, it still comes back to safety. And all of these needs to be documented. It needs to be communicated. Not just in verbal engagement. There needs to be documents that you can show that, oh, this is my engagement with procurement team on this issue. And these are the responses. And these are the actions from HSE, the steps that HSE has taken to engage them. I hope that answers your question. And I hope that helps.
Yes, I want to believe so. I want to believe so. Okay, so we have other questions here. And I'll be reading them out because I jotted my questions too. Okay. So what will be the role of leadership in all of this? The conflicts between the HSE and the procurement. What will be the role of leadership? What will be their take on this?
So leadership has ultimate responsibility for safety in the workplace. So if there's an incident, they are responsible. So as it is their ultimate responsibility, they sign the policies in the organization. They are still accountable for if there are issues Fine, it might be shared accountability with the different teams, but they are ultimately accountable if there's an issue. This is why policies should be documented and signed by top management. This shows their commitment in writing. Top leadership is ultimately responsible for safety in the organization, and this should be documented in a policy statement and signed off by them. Communicated to all personnel, including the procurement team. Okay. Leadership is also responsible when there are issues like the other person that asked the question. When there are non-compliance issues or friction, they can also serve as mediator when you escalate issues to them to bring resolution to such issues.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Fatima. And the next question goes to Mr. Oluleke. How can procurement team better enable HSE objectives? So the HSE team has their objectives, and how can the procurement team help them out when it comes to the HSE objectives?
There should be what is called a cross-functional meeting between both parties, that is the procurement team and the HSE team. During these meetings, objective of each parties will be shared. And if there's any misunderstanding from any of the team, it should be ironed out. KPI of each party should be shared, priorities will be shared. And as a result, everything that's supposed to be aligned in objective to make sure that we have an incident-free project delivery will be aligned out. Each party will work consistently with each other to make sure that the project is being delivered on time. In fact, there is something I actually introduced to my organization. Now, every item has budget, and every organization wants to optimize or minimize costs. But you want to optimize costs. At the same time, you want to actually have the quality item being delivered. So how should we do it? So why setting budget for any particular item? Let the procurement team, in collaboration with, on this call now, the HSE team, have what is called a joint section meeting, whereby before the budget is being set for that particular item, the procurement team will engage the HSE team, getting their specifications and their requirements, sourced from a valid vendor or probably OEM, to have idea of the price. That's what we call market research. So when budget is being apportioned for that particular item, all the parties that are involved in budget making already knows or have the idea of the price, the quality ones. So at the same time, like I said before now, during the presentation, procurement is all about stakeholder management. It's not a one-man thing. So when everybody is carried along, even before the requisition is being released, before the budget is being pushed out for that particular item or for that particular item. So when item is now being procured, it will be in alignment with both HSE and the cost optimization objective of the company. So a cross-functional meetings often iron out and make policies between procurement and HSE to be aligned to make sure that we have an incident-free delivery of a project. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for the response. And we have one last question for today, and still goes to Mr. Oluleke. So the question says, at what point in the procurement process should the HSE be involved to prevent the kind of misalignment you've described? At what point?
HSE should be involved from pre-qualification stage of any vendor that will be onboarded for HSE item. Now, there's what is called pre-qualification questionnaire and requirements. So when all the questionnaire has been answered, they're going to send to the vendor. And of course, copies and documents, copies and documents, certificates that prove that, okay, you are a certified HSE vendor needs also to be sent. And when this is sent, a procurement professional pushes this to HSE immediately to evaluate those certificates and confirm, if need be, if those certificates are still valid, and also confirm if those certificates are actually genuine, because we have so many funny vendors out there. And that's what we call the technical aspect of evaluation in pre-qualification state of any vendor. Not only to HSE alone, even to civil, to electrical, to mechanical, every one of them needs to be carried along. And when we have everything being done by the technical evaluation being done during the pre-qualification stage, then it makes the work of procurement easy. Because you have what is called a validated vendor management database. Whereas you have your list for HSE, your list of vendor for HSE, your list of vendor for mechanical, everything will be categorized. So from the initial stage of pre-qualified vendors, of onboarding vendors, HSE needs to be involved. Even when quotations are received from HSE vendors, you still need to send the quotations on priced one anyway to the HSE team to also evaluate and give you their report based on their requirements. This goes a long way. So when report has been received from HSE team by the procurement team, it is that report that procurement is going to work on. Take for instance, if the HSE vendor that have the highest technical evaluation score, and the cost is not within the budget, so it now lies within the procurement to negotiate, do their own proper negotiation work with that particular vendor that has been recommended by the technical evaluation, by the HSE via their technical evaluation report, to make sure that that particular price is within the company approved project for that particular item. So initially from the onset, and even during the procurement process, and even after, towards the end of the procurement process, because during delivery, funny things will also happen. Like I said before, there's what is called material inspection report. So when HSE vendor wants to go and deliver their items, so there should be HSE team representative, which should be part of the co-equity team, to actually inspect that particular item and be sure that that item aligns with the requirement from the HSE. So when that has been done, and that particular representative of HSE team has certified the item, then procurement received the material inspection reports, which made procurement note, okay, that yes, this item has been inspected and received. But if there is any clause or any non-conformance that is being discovered during the process of inspection, it will also be stated on that particular report. And that report will guide the procurement team of next step of action to be taken regarding that particular vendor or regarding that particular item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oleke, for the feedback. We have our last question. Oh no, Mr. Enam Odudu. I cannot I cannot ignore his question. Please, we'll have to answer this last question for today because he's one of our top attendees. I'm going to use that because he has been attending our webinar right from inception, from the period we started the webinar. He has been a regular attendee. So I would like for you to please answer his question. Thank you. His question says, what are the roles of quality assurance in procurement? And can you please briefly highlight the collaboration of HSE, procurement, and QA and C? So I don't know whichever one you would want to answer first. The role of QA and C in procurement, and the collaboration of HSE and procurement and QA, that's quality assurance and control. Yes. So Mr. Oluleke.
All right, thank you very much. What are the roles of co-equity in procurement? Good. Co-equity team needs to be carried along, number one, even in pre-qualification processes, because the vendor that is going to be involved in supply items or services for an EPC project must be duly certified and must have an ISO certificate. So that, I can say, is the list. So this is part of the things that you need to have a copy of and send to respective teams for evaluation and their validation before vendors are being opened. Another aspect that I would say Then, for instance, there's a time you had a project, a pipeline link project in my company, and you have to get what is called a shutdown valve, and that shutdown valve needs to be gotten abroad. Also, on requisition that will be sent, QAQC team will have to specify their requirements, their quality grade for that particular item. So, even after that particular shutdown valve has been manufactured in China, we still have to involve a third-party ISO certified quality firm to do what is called a pre-test delivery for that particular shutdown valve. So, based on their reports given to us, and all these things must also be stated on the contracts, there's going to be a pre-test before delivery, even after delivery, not even virtual, on-site. So, quality of a particular items based on their requirement grade needs to be tested before that particular item is being delivered. Even at the point of delivery, that's for overseas items. Within our own side here, within the local vendors, sorry, let me use the word national vendors, Nigerian national vendors. At the point of delivery, QAQC team still also need to be over to verify that that particular item meets the quality specified requirement for that particular item. Then another question, can you please briefly highlight the collaboration of HSE procedure and HSE procedure and QAQC? Good. Now, HSE is an end user because there's going to be a requirement coming from them on a particular item or services that should be met for a particular project specifically. Now, HSE and QAQC works together in the sense that the QAQC team needs to know also the requirement of HSE team. So it's going to be a kind of a collaborative work at the point of delivery when items are being inspected. So, for particular items, the requirement will be stated by QAQC in conjunction and in collaboration with, by HSE rather, in conjunction and in collaboration with the QAQC. But all what procurement needs to do is to make sure that the procurement operation goes along with the requirement requested by the end user, in this case, HSE. So, while delivering, the representative of the HSE team and also the representative of the QAQC team that is on ground, we have to now inspect that particular item or services at the point of delivery to make sure that it aligns with the requirements. If it is service, that's what is called service level agreement, which will be stated, that is service delivery requirement, will be stated majorly in the contract. So review the contract, why the service are being delivered per milestones, HSE teams and the end user, QAQC team and the end user HSE needs to evaluate what has been delivered in terms of service per milestones in accordance to the requirement that is stated and in their specifications. I don't know if I'll be able to answer that particular question. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Oluleke. Thank you very much, Mrs. Fatima. I really appreciate you honoring our invitation to this webinar today. It's actually an honor to have you both here today, and we are glad you could make it. Thank you very much. And to our attendees, thank you. Thank you very much. I can't really thank you guys enough. Despite the technical glitches, the network and other things that came up, you guys still stayed with us till this time. We really appreciate you all. Thank you very much for joining our webinar. My name is Kelechi and I'm representing Green Shield Safety. Like I said earlier at the beginning of the webinar, Green Shield Safety is committed to ensuring the workplace safety of every Nigerian worker. We want to ensure that every Nigerian worker goes home safe, in one piece to their families. And with that, we came up with webinar sessions like this to enlighten us. We need to learn more. We need to keep, learning. And, there's a saying that learning comes from hearing and hearing and hearing over again. So, yes, Thank you very much for joining us. And of course, we'll still have other webinar sessions, and we'll invite you all to come again and, keep learning. So we'll have to just keep learning. Yes. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much. We can't even thank you enough. We can't thank you enough. I can see some persons asking for the recorded webinar. Yes, we'll have it sent to you. Okay. It will be on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see the webinar video, you go to our YouTube channel from Monday. Yes, you get it from Monday. Our YouTube channel will be open for you to watch the webinar again. Then those asking for the slides, okay, I would have to speak with our panelists first and get their permission to share the slides. Okay. Yes, thank you all once again for joining Green Shield webinar. And do well to follow all our social media channels from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Twitter is now X, right? And Instagram. Do well to follow us on our social media channels for safety tips. We usually post safety tips, motivational talks on our social media pages. So do well to follow us, like our posts, and engage. All right. Thank you very much. Our speakers, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for honoring our invitation. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Even though you might not be the speaker, you could just join us as our attendees and, keep the engagement rolling. Thank you very much. And here we'll sign out. And we'd like to have a last word from our speakers. What would you like to say to the attendees today? Mrs. Fatima, if you what would you like to say as your statement, one last statement to the attendees? What would you like to say, ma? Is Miss Fatima here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I was planning to log off.
Okay. What will be your last statement to attendees today? Just one sentence, just something.
Okay. Safety is not a department. So safety is not a person. Safety is not the responsibility of the safety officer.
Okay.
It is a shared commitment. It's everyone's responsibility.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Fatima. Thank you very much. And Mr. Oluleke, what will be your last statement for us today?
Yeah, as much as commercial values we have to be optimized, due diligence must be carried out.
Okay.
And carrying out of that due diligence, all stakeholders must be involved to make sure that projects are being achieved in terms of objective. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much, Ma, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. And it's bye from us from Green Shield Safety. Think safety always. Bye.